Hello. I know everyone in love hates the third person, but many have become the third without knowing it. Have you ever encountered such a case? And that is my case. I am Eva. As a girl from my hometown who came to the city to study and work, my father died early when I was young. I had to work a lot. In the morning, I go to school, and in the afternoon, I have a job at a coffee shop. And I also love to sing, so I go to a tea house to sing. Sometimes I will distribute leaflets to some brands. I did anything, as long as I can help my mother. For 4 years, today is the day I graduate. I plan not to leave my job until I find a stable job. But life was hard. I held a university diploma and continued to apply for jobs everywhere, but I still could not find a suitable job. And especially, I lied to my mother every time I called her that I had a stable job. I knew she was very hardships. That night, after singing in the tea room, I sat back at the bar's railing and sipped a glass of juice, startled by a guy's voice. As someone I have never met before and had no impression, I happily chatted and confided to him. Don't think I'm easygoing. I just think he and I won't see each other again, and he doesn't know who I am either. I continued my work in the tea room. I noticed that he used to sit in a dark corner, which was quite difficult to observe. The drink was also quite simple. He looks quite mature but very attractive, with a black roof and a shirt with 3 buttons. Luxurious pants. He comes to my store very often, and he just sits there. That evening, after the end of my working session at the tea room, he was waiting for me at the door and wanted to take a walk with me. His facial expression is quite contemplative, and I know he has many problems in life. He is Alan. I was a director at a joint stock company and suggested that I be him assistant with a fairly good salary, provided I had to take time off from all overtime work. I was happy as I could get a job, and of course, I could not refuse, and tomorrow was my first trial day. The next morning, when I arrived at the company, I wore the same old uniform at school because I didn't have any other clothes. I caught the eyes of everyone looking at me as if I were an alien or a new creature that has just been discovered. I went to the front desk and asked the director's room, and was answered with an unfriendly tone. His room is on the 11th floor, and the whole floor has only 2 very large rooms. One is him, and the other is an assistant room. I walked in. He almost laughed when he saw me. He said he needed to help me change my dressing style. He led me to a high-end fashion shop. It was so luxurious that I could not dream of coming in for a lifetime, let alone shopping. He looked rather sophisticated again and chose my dresses for me. He said that now I'm the assistant next to him, who is also the face of the company, so I shouldn't dress too simple. Now I understand why people are looking at me like that. I was given a Gucci dress, and I was not sure how to pay for these things. But he said it was a thank you gift for listening to what he said. I was guided by him in detail about everything I need to do, from arranging the schedule for him to receiving the vouchers and books in the departments. The more I contact him, the more warm and reliable he feels. His schedule is dense, and we often have to host guests late at night. I also got used to the alcohol, and I did not stand up many times because drunk. Next week, he and I have a business trip to another city, a trip for 3 days and 2 nights. I have my contract ready and everything I need for the flight. His luggage is quite simple, only one suitcase to map. The first time I was on a plane, I was so drunk that my eyes went dark. I don't remember what kind of hotel I went to. I just saw when I opened my eyes and saw him next to me, looking quite worried. Seeing him up giving me some fruit juice. He said that because I forgot to book a room, the hotel we planned to stay in had no room. He had to go around several places to rent this room, but it only had one room left. He said I rest assured he will sleep on the sofa. I certainly didn't dare to let my boss sleep on the sofa, but he disagreed. That night after dinner, I went to get dressed for both in the meeting tomorrow. At night, I saw his face and he kissed me. Perhaps it was a beautiful dream. The appointment went pretty well. The partner is quite fastidious, but still conquered by his ingenuity. The signing ended faster than expected. He took me to a large building, We had lunch on the 8th floor where you could look over the city. He promised me tonight to go to the amusement park. He wanted them both to relieve stress after all day long. We had a great time out. The ending is a late night meal at the hotel. That night, when I was sleeping, I saw his face again. I wanted to hold on to this moment and put my arms around his neck. A genuine feeling. I opened my eyes as him. Not in time for me to say, he locked his lips with a kiss. I didn't object, but my body didn't react to it either. That night, we loved passionately. Both realized the love for each other. And I also want this relationship to continue and end in a wedding. After returning to work, I saw a very noble middle aged woman who asked me to sit down. It turned out that she was Alan's mother in law and the largest shareholder in the company. She promised to give me a lot of money if I quit my job. If I deliberately, then she expelled me from the industry and withdrew my stake in the company. I had no time to react when he stepped in and said he would file for a divorce and the stock of the mother in law had sold would be him acquired. She was mad, and not as aristocratic as she was at first. She said she would make us regret what we have done. He comforted me. A genuine feeling. So it was because he was in a relationship with two corporations and was manipulated by her that she was forced to marry her daughter. He had to live in at her house and was often despised, and married life became increasingly stalemate. Then he met me, and I gave him a sense of peace. Everything was arranged by him and told me to be assured. The next morning, every newspaper reported that the general manager had an affair with his assistant. The company's stock went down. People condemned us. I have moved in to live with his apartment. Today, he has to go to court to complete the divorce procedure without taking any property. When I went to the company, everyone turned my eyes to me. But there was no danger at all. A receptionist who told me that Alan Bell's ex-wife was an impolite playboy had many times the employees here encountered several tattooed gangsters, full of themselves, come to the company to collect the debt. Or, when she was drunk, the nightclub went to the company to find him. I can't let Alan be tied up by a girl like that. I went to the security room and asked them to quote the camera down the main hall and to the place of usury where she regularly owes money. I came as a representative to pay on her behalf and get all her loan papers. I was waiting at a nightclub where she and her friends knew what I saw. She was wriggling around a few guys like she was using drugs. I quickly took my phone and recorded videos of everything. That night, Alan returned, his face quite sad. It turned out that Belle refused to sign the divorce application, and if he wanted her to sign, he would have to divide the company for her. I can't let him lose his company. If he protects me from public opinion, I will protect him from her. I want to go to court with him tomorrow. He was a bit worried, but I persuaded him at all costs. The next morning at the trial, I saw a beautiful and discreet girl in a flowery dress with a closed neck. I almost didn't recognize Belle because she was like a different person. At court, she was gentle and always proved to be weak. Belle also accused me and Alan of having an affair in court and gave pictures of me and Alan going out. Then she cried and said she had tried to hold Alan. She fictitious to be just like her mother. By the trial today, I have contacted many journalists, large and small, especially the articles that reported my adultery. I will get it all back, both him and honor. I brought to court all the company's debt papers and 2 videos. One was a short video at the company. One was last night I recorded. The whole hall burst out of surprise, and journalists were allowed to hunt for news and to take photos repeatedly. She gradually lost her temper and went crazy, so much so that she had to be invited out of the trial. On that occasion, I also stood up and say that he and I did not commit adultery, but we developed feelings when he was filing for divorce. The trial ended, he took my hand out, he said thank you in front of everyone, and Belle had a hard time getting rid of the reporters. The partners, after learning that they had actively called to cooperate with my company, the stock began to show signs of stabilization. Our employees are happy because they will not be bothered by the gangster. All waves finally ended peacefully. We intend, when the stable company, will get married. I rebuilt my house in the countryside and bought all the essential equipment for my mother and brother. My mother was finally at ease old age. Alan continued to grow the company, and we opened two more branches. Maybe some of you will say break the happiness of the family of Alan, but once you have experienced it, you will understand. When you know that you are the third person, it feels very bad. But if in love someone is not loved, then that person is redundant. If I gave my choice, I would still do so. I look forward to hearing from you.